Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. MeetPSP will be starting shortly. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A function on Zoom as well as Facebook Live. In your question, please identify yourself and which area you are staying in. At this stage, I will hand the time to Craig, who's no stranger to us. Craig, please.
Thank you very much, Shenglin. Where is... Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to MeetPSP2, and the M stands for MeetPSP2. Hi, my name is Craig Teo, T-E-O. And for those that have just joined us, welcome on Zoom and on Facebook Live as well. We're going to introduce a few of the panel of the people who are all from PSP. And of course, joining them will be none other than the Secretary General of Progress Singapore Party, which is Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. Now, in case if you find me a bit familiar, I guess you have seen me on TV. I've acted on TV from comedies for quite a while, and since the mid-1990s and up to my last show with MediaCorp was on acting as Professor Charles Tzu Cheng in the series that was called Whispers of the Dead. So that's a little bit about myself and the thing I've been doing besides acting. I have a host of other interests as well. And at the same time, like I said, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here. I'd just like to bring you all up to speed based on what's going to be happening this evening. We are going to introduce you, of course, as I said earlier, to the panel, and leading them will be Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, who is the Sec-Gen of Progress Singapore Party. And along the way, we are going to be conducting some polls, P-O-L-L. So you have a chance, there'll be 3 polls that we'll be conducting this evening. And also there'll be a chance for you to win some really great prizes, because the last time we had nice prizes to give away. And if you can see this, there's a nice PSP t-shirt. You can see the logo there. We have a nice PSP t-shirt to give away. We also have a nice PSP cap. Okay, so for those of you, do stay tuned, because we are conducting the trivia questions a bit later. We have 5 of the t-shirts, 5 of the caps, and we have 2 of this very lovely Otakon otter, who is the mascot. His hands can be put together as though he's praying, or it can be opened up. So 2 of this. So altogether, quite a lot of prizes that we'll be giving away this evening. So plus the poll questions that you'll be giving out as well. So for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, you can take part in the poll questions. And for those who are joining us on Facebook Live, unfortunately, you cannot join us live, but you can still take part in the poll questions at the end of the session. Okay, so folks, what has happened since the last time that we caught up on MeetPSP? A lot of things have happened. Of course, today, in case if you are not aware, just let me check with my screen here. We have a total of 517 cases. Most of them are from the foreign worker dormitories for those with COVID-19 cases, and there are 15 community cases. So that is a bit worrisome. 15 community cases, and now with schools reopening, let's hope that we can keep the numbers down and life can slowly return to normal in Singapore. And talking about COVID as well, right? This year, when we are going to have the GE, it's going to be a very different thing happening in Singapore, because a lot of the things that we used to have when we used to do the GE in the past, one of the things that will be missing will be having this thing called the live rallies, which until now we still don't know if they can still proceed to have the live rallies, which was a staple of past elections. And going forward now, there are many things. Sorry, I seem to be having some problem in my headset. Hope you can still hear me clearly. Okay, good. So this will be some of the changes, and because of COVID, we have to practice safe distancing, so on and so forth. These are the changes that will be happening when we are dealing with this COVID-19 situation. And at the same time as well, something quite funny happened. Our Trade and Industry Minister mentioned something about face masks that was made, cotton was made from sheep, or comes from sheep. So, and surprisingly, it was quite funny. I received a message that his initials stands for cotton comes from sheep. So poor guy, he must be working so hard. And because, when you say cotton, it's cotton wool, right? So maybe that's why when he said cotton wool, the wool, he thought it comes from sheep. So, okay. Those are the things that are happening right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'd like to welcome all of you to MeetPSP. In case you're wondering what does MeetPSP stands for, the M stands for Meet, M-E-E-T, Meet PSP. And tonight, of course, you are going to be meeting some of the members of PSP who will be forming the panel, and they are led tonight by someone that needs no introduction to the rest of Singapore, and that is Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, who came out of retirement to start Progress Singapore Party. It's called PSP for short, to make Singapore a better place, okay? And since we're talking about Dr. Tan, it now gives me great pleasure to introduce the SecGen, which is Secretary General of the Progress Singapore Party. And I'd like everyone to welcome Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. Hello, Doc. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Greg. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's event is the second Meet the People session conducted by PSP. I think this will be the normal, the new normal, if the COVID-19 continues in this manner. Let me also use this occasion to say a few words about PSP. I must tell you that PSP started about a year ago with only 12 people. And those 12 were primarily from my old constituency in Ayer Rajah. They were very old politicians, and they all belong also to the PAP. But I managed to get them together and form this PSP party, because all of us we were all there in the first generation of leaders in Singapore. And we have experienced what took place there. But the current scenario wasn't what we felt was good enough. There were many changes made, and some of the changes disturbed us badly. And so we decided to form this party so that we can galvanize Singaporeans to see whether we can make a better life for most Singaporeans. So we are the newest political party. And when we first formed, we kept to these old 5 fundamental values that we started as a country. That is, we believe in democracy, we believe in justice, equality, peace, and progress. That was the original aim. But over this 1 year, we were actually overwhelmed by the number of Singaporeans coming to join us. So now we are not a 12-man party made up of very old people, but we are more than 1,000, and it's made up of many Singaporeans from all walks of life, young and old included. Now, those who join us, as I said, it's a mixed group of people. Some are scholars, some are with very outstanding academic qualifications. But there are also many who join us. They came from the rougher side of life, but they made a success of their life nonetheless, and have plenty to be proud of. Now, some are top executives of large MNCs, banks. Others are self-made owners of successful enterprise or managers. Now, each of them will bring their unique life experiences and wisdom to PSP and later on to Singapore. Now, they have come forward to join our mission to build a better future for Singapore. So among the panelists are those who want to share their concerns about the future of Singapore, as well as the current serious disruptions and the impact on our people caused by COVID-19. Now they are stepping forward to serve the nation, and we should really thank them. I will leave them to make their own introduction, and I want this evening for all of you to ask them questions and find out for yourself the people who are stepping forward to help to make this place better. Over to you, Greg.
Okay, thank you very much there, Dr. Tan Cheng Bok. And there's a little bit about you, and saw some of the reactions on Facebook. They're very happy to see you, Doc, that you are so
Thank
healthy and
you.
you're looking so good. Huh?
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, by the way, some people, they were saying, wow, you're 80 years old and you still do these sort of things. And I salute you for that, huh? 80
Thank you.
years old, most people just want to retire, go off into the sunset, but not you, man. You're gonna change Singapore and make it for the better. All the kudos to you, Doc. Okay, now it brings me a chance to bring on the other candidates as well who are in the party. And can they all turn on their videos, please, so that the rest of Singapore can get to know all of them. And I'll be introducing them in a particular sequence. And as they're coming on right now, so Singapore, you can see most of them coming on, turning on their videos. And they have come on, still maybe one or two missing. So let's make sure all of them are in view for everyone to see. I think, yes, everyone is in position right now. Thank you very much, panelists, my dear members from PSP. Okay, I'm also a member of PSP in case you're wondering. So I'm just here to be the co-host and moderator for this evening. And Doc has said a few words and he said he would like them to introduce themselves. Okay, so the next person that I'd like to introduce to all of you, and where is, I think I'm still missing one person. The video is not on. Where is everyone on board? Or are we having one more person who's not here? Where is our ASG? Oh, he's up there. Okay, he's in here. Okay, everyone's here. My mistake, my apologies. Okay, the next person that I'd like to bring on is, of course, the ASG. ASG is the short form for Assistant Secretary General of PSP, and he is Leong Man Wai. Hi, Man Wai, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
and
thank
say
you,
hello to
Craig.
everyone. Yeah, hi.
Hi, thank you, Craig. Yeah.
Yeah.
亲爱的新加坡同胞们，今天很高兴在这里跟你们一起互动。OK， 我是梁文辉，新加坡前进党的助理秘书长。我成长在牛侧水，19岁那年获得政府奖学金，到日本去留学。毕业回国后，参加了 GIC， 学习如何管理一个庞大的国家储备金。之后，我到了东京、伦敦和香港3家不同的全球投资银行工作，总共在海外我工作了12年。然后我回到新加坡，成为华侨证券的董事总经理。那个时候刚好是新加坡股票市场佣金自由化的时期，所以工作相对的艰难，非常具有挑战性，但是我觉得非常有满足感，所以我的职业生涯相对上是成功的，也非常有收获的。我对于政府也没有任何的个人仇恨、愤怒或是嫉妒，包括以前跟现在的所有的部长们，有一些还是我的同级或同班的同学。但是在我的工作过程中，我发现新加坡在很多领域已经朝向了错误的方向。我不能假装新加坡的情况一直是很好，所以新加坡是需要一些改革。身为立国一代的成员，我希望帮助新加坡启动一些改革，让我们的孩子们可以完成它，让我们的孙辈和曾孙辈能够继承一个更加平等、具有活力的新加坡。我们非常欢迎你加入我们的团队，跟我们一起奋斗，努力去实现这样的一个社会。谢谢你们。好，刚才just now I introduced myself as Leong Man Wai, the Assistant Secretary of Progress Singapore Party. I was brought up in Chinatown, went to Japan to study on a scholarship, came back to Singapore, worked for GIC, learned how to manage the huge national reserves of our country. Then I went overseas to work for 12 years at 3 different investment banks. in Tokyo, London, and Hong Kong before coming back to Singapore to lead OCBC Securities during a period of stock commission liberalization. Very challenging period, but very exciting. Okay, so I'm here to, as a member of the Merdeka generation, I hope to help to initiate some changes because we found that Singapore is indeed moving in the wrong direction, to make some changes so that our children can complete the changes, so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren can inherit a Singapore that is fairer and more vibrant. So we need all your help and support, and we look forward to all of your support in the future. Thank you very much. Back to you, Craig.
Okay, thank you very much there, Man Wai. Wow, your Mandarin, solid. My Mandarin, I wish it was half as good, 1/4 as good as yours. 真的我的华语基础不是很好了，还跟人家聊聊还可以了哈。Okay, excellent, wonderful. Now let's see who we're going to introduce next. The next person I'm going to introduce to you, he is Yuan Kin Peng Francis, and he's also a CEC member. CEC means Central Executive Committee member. Remember, that is a big Q because that's part of the trivia question later. Okay, Francis, the floor is yours. Take it away. Say hello to Singapore.
Thank you, Craig. Hello, everybody. I'm Francis Yuan, or Yuan Kin Peng in Chinese, Ruan Jianping. I belong to the Merdeka generation. We are today a first world country, but the majority of our people do not really enjoy first world standard of living. I grew up in Chinatown like Man Wai and lost my parents when I was still in school. Life was difficult, but there was a spirit of care and compassion. We were not a first world country then, but neither did we have issues like high cost of living and huge income inequality. And there was a strong sense of belonging. The first 20 years of my career was with the Air Force, doing my part in nation building and protecting the security of our country. That was when we knew what we were defending. This is not the case anymore. Many are now asking, whose interests are we really defending? My 25 years in the private sectors, working both here and overseas, have given me a different perspective of how our country can do better. I have been a business leader for MNCs like Honeywell, Ingersoll Rand, and my last full job was the CEO of Hong Leong Asia. The one thing that makes a company successful is to stay competitive and relevant. So the same goes for a country. To progress, we need to have free contest of ideas and room for alternative solutions. No one party has monopoly of talent and ideas. A one-party rule is no longer serving the interests of the people and will not augur well for the future of our country. We need change and a strong voice in Parliament to put us all back on track. I would like to certainly be part of this change and would like to help PSP build up a strong alternative to the present government, serving as a magnet for talent, for ideas, most important, to get people to join us with the heart to serve and serve with no cost, not because of money, not because of material benefit, but because we love our country, a country that the pioneer generation, our generation, and the present generation have worked so hard to build. So look forward to some of your questions. We'd love to answer them and like to share our thoughts with you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Craig.
Thank you, Francis. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I love what you just said. So just to highlight a point, sometimes Singaporeans may have forgotten, okay? What is the thing is that, I was at the opening for the party launch, that was in August of last year. And Doc actually said, we are looking for an evolution, okay? Evolution, not a revolution. Because why? Revolution usually got blood and tears and bullets and all these things. That's revolution. We are not looking for that. We are looking for an evolution. That means a change, which is good for our country. to move away from a one-party rule. And one of the objectives of PSP is to deny the incumbent a two-thirds majority, right? A two-thirds majority. And to do that, we need to have 32 alternative members of the different political parties to form a credible force so that things will not just be, you know, business as usual. So that is the objective that we are trying to achieve in the Singapore context. Now, okay, before I take up too much time here, I'd like to bring on the next person, and he's also a CEC member, a big hint, CEC member, because that's part of the trivia question later. And he's none other than Abdul Rahman. Welcome to the show, Rahman, and say hello to Singapore. Rahman, I think you have to unmute your mic. Seem to be having some. Okay, that's better. Yeah.
That's done. That's done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to our session tonight. We are very pleased. We are very pleased to be here tonight to answer to all your questions. My name is Abdul Rahman. I live.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good, Rahman. You have to unmute again. I think you have accidentally muted yourself.
Okay, good evening,
Yes.
everybody. Apologize for the slight technical error just now. My name is Abdul Rahman. I'm a DCEC member. My career started with the Singapore Fire Service and Singapore Airlines. Then my career culminated in actually doing projects and development. So I've traveled many parts of the world, witnessed their political system, education, welfare, governance, law and orders, and their economics as well. So being actually in overseas, I could see all the various differences in the manner actually the government actually handles the public in terms of freedom, in terms of training and development to prepare them for the future. So my intention tonight is actually to share with you all the experiences that I have working overseas, meeting many people from all sorts of life, how they actually handle the disprivilege and those people who has been unable to actually compete with the masses due to their conditions. So please, by all means, ask as many questions as you like. So we are here actually to answer all those concerns that you have. At the same time, because of Hari Raya situation, let me wish our Muslim friends here, Selamat Hari Raya Puasa. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Mr. Abdul Rahman, and yeah, I also forgot. I see, because this year I never got to see my Malay friends. So I'd like to wish everyone as well a Selamat Hari Raya Adil Fitri, because it lasts for about almost a month, right? So this year, you know, many of them cannot go and visit each other, have to practice social distancing. So these are all part of the new normal, as they used to call it now, the new normal. Okay, folks, after Abdul Rahman, the next person I would like to bring on is Mr. Tan Meng Wah. Okay, in case you don't know who he is, right there, he is on the screen right now. There's Tan Meng Wah. He's an academic, and he was the one that was recently quite famous on Facebook with his post going viral. He was the one that wrote that article called COVID-19, Why the Mishandling. So a lot of people were sending that out. You know, it went viral on WhatsApp and everything. So once again, welcome to the show. I mean, the floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Hi, good evening. My name is Meng Hua, Chinese name Chen Ming Hua. Some call me Dr. Tan also, but I'm different. What I have is a PhD in economics and so on. And the reason why I wrote COVID-19, it's not because I'm a doctor, it's not because I'm a medical doctor, but more because I was looking at the political economy of Singapore and so on. I'm sure you have some questions to ask later, and I'm happy to answer some of the questions. But just a bit about myself. I'm currently teaching as an industry consultant at NTU for their Master of Science program in Technopreneurship. And before that, I was actually a research fellow with the Policy Institute at Institute of Policy Studies at LKUS School of Public Policy. My research focus then was relating to issues relating to income inequality, public housing, and SME developments. And from the research, I realized that something was very wrong with Singapore over the years, especially before and after the turn of the century. In fact, there was a shift in emphasis in economic development from income generation. When we say income generation, I'm referring to GDP generation, to after the turn of the century to wealth generation. What's the difference between the two? Income generation, basically, when you grow the GDP, you create jobs, and it's good for the workers and the SMEs. Okay? But when it comes to wealth generation, the economic gains actually accrue more to the asset owners and capital owners. And because of this shift in emphasis, you see that, after the turn of the century, income inequality actually worsened very quickly. So now we have high income inequality, high housing costs, insufficient retirement funding, and many other issues, including loss of job. More and more PMET, for example, are dislocated and so on. So all these issues can be attributed to this shift in emphasis. Hopefully tonight, I get a chance to explain to you how this thing, why and how this take place. I think from the Q&A, I really saw Gilbert Thomas ask a question about income inequality. And I'll be happy to answer your question later on tonight, to explain why income inequality actually has not gone down. It has actually gone up. Anyway, look forward to the interaction tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's Tan Meng Hua, graduate from Nanjing University in China. He got his PhD there, but so quite power pack. Huh? Okay, next person I'd like to bring on is Harish. Harish is an IT expert. He's been in the business for so many years. I think like more than 20 years in the IT business. And I think I'll let him tell you a bit more about himself. Welcome to the show, Harish. Say hello to Singapore.
Well, thank you very much, Craig. I appreciate that introduction and the enthusiasm behind it too. Hi all, and a good rainy evening, fellow Singaporeans. I hope you're all keeping safe and dry. I'm Harish, and I'm really pleased to be on this panel with my colleagues from the Progress Singapore Party. I'm an electrical engineer by training, and I spent the last 30 plus years in the IT industry doing many things. Started my own consultancies and part of other large organizations, a bunch of startups, and failed startups along the way, a lot of lessons learned. But I was also very fortunate to have had the chance to be able to participate in what was previously known as ARPANET in the United States when I went to graduate school there. This was in the 1980s. And that's when I noticed that there's this thing called the internet that came out and how that is going to be extremely important for all of us around the world. The mere fact that we can do this today is testimony to the kind of technology that offers us dramatically across everybody, no matter which industry you're in. A little bit of my early years. I was born at Youngberg Hospital. I don't think it exists now. And we lived somewhere in the Senate Estate area. And in 1964, my parents got a rental flat at the HDB in Queenstown. This was a year before we became independent, and in the Commonwealth Crescent area. And I spent 20 years of my life there growing up. So I would count Man Wai and Francis as part of the same Merdeka generation as well. although I'm right at the tail end of that generation. I attended Newtown Primary School, so hi to all the alums of Newtown Primary. I'm somehow managed to do well enough in primary school to go to Raffles Institution, which was then located at Bras Basah. That was a wonderful 6 years that I had in that school. Subsequently, I did my full-time NS in the police force, and which to me was a fundamentally important, life-changing opportunity that was handed to me. And I learned significant amounts of stuff about my own fellow Singaporeans and about Singapore in general. It was just a phenomenal time for me. The 2.5 years went very quickly, but I learned a lot. Subsequently, I was then posted to as a reservist to the newly formed SCDF. And one of the things I'm quite proud of having been sent to SCDF was that in 2004, when the tsunami happened in the Indian Ocean, I was mobilized and I was a deputy commander on Operation Lionheart from the SCDF. And we were deployed for 2 weeks in Banda Aceh, trying to help people there. That was a profound moment again for me because it showed who we are and what we can do. And we can do a lot more and a lot more capability that we have. We are a little red dot, but I think we can do significant amounts of good for the world. Singapore is my home, and this is where my family and my friends are, like all of you here. So it pains me to see how in the last 20 odd years, we seem to have lost our way and that we are still playing from the same storybook. We don't seem to have good ideas on how to do other things, new things, and explore new ideas. We seem to push away suggestions and proposals because that's not how it needs to be done. We have a lot of sacred cows that are not being addressed in how we should get rid of them. HDB being one of them, CPF being another, and so on and so forth. Singaporeans and Singapore can do a heck of a lot better. Much, much better. Why? It's not because I want to do it better. I want to do it better for my kids, for my kids' kids, for your grandchildren, and for the future of Singapore so that they can also be proud to be Singaporeans. So with that, thank you very much. Over back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there, Harish. And you're right, because Singaporeans in general, sometimes now we do have this feeling that the sense of identity, what does it mean to be a Singaporean anymore? And I guess for most of you who have decided to join PSP are doing it not for ourselves, but more so for our children and our grandchildren. So do we continue to maintain the status quo, or are we going to proceed forward, making some good positive changes? Well, just like me helping out PSP, there are good intentioned friends who says, you sure? No, you dare to do it? Will you get marked? I says, no, I'm doing it for Singapore. I mean, sometimes we are perceived as when you join an alternative political party, that means you become an enemy of Singapore. Now, that cannot be further from the truth. Our hearts all are here. We were raised here. We are true blue Singaporeans, right? So it'd be crazy, right? We are going to try and hurt our own country. Okay, so enough about that. Let me bring on to the next person. And the next person I have is, you know who I'm going to bring on? I'm going to bring on the lady, the only rose among the sunflower. Because most of the time people say rose among the thorns. So all the guys in PSP are not thorns, they're all sunflowers. So welcome to the show, Jijin Wong, and the only lady. Welcome. Say hello to Singapore.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Gigi. If you cannot remember my name, very simple. Remember G and G, good and good. That is my name, Gigi, Jin Wong. So it's easy to memorize that. So a self-introduction about myself. I'm same age as Singapore. So you also can remember that, right? It's very easy. Same age as Singapore, and my name is Gigi. Okay, I have a twin sister, identical twins. Speak like me, look identical as me also. So when I was small, actually I was from quite a poor families and my parents were separated. So I, like many Singaporeans, dream to have a degree. So I'm quite poor at that time, so I struggle very hard. I hold 3 jobs to have a 3 part-time job to finish my my degree. So the job I'm holding is production workers, also giving tuition. At the same time, I also 找底股. You know what is Sao Ki Gu or not? In Cantonese, it's called Zhao Guai. So in Hokkien, it's called Zhao Ki Gu. So basically, it's called illegal hawker, which means that during I was young day, I just carry my products. I go to the market and sell, and also go to the bus interchange and sell it. So when the environment officer come, I got to carry my product and run. If not, they will confiscate my goods and also give me a samban. So that is how I earn a living to do my part-time study. And at the end of the day, I finished my my basic degree and also done my master degree. So I love challenge. I like to make impossible things to be possible because I really love challenge. So what I do is during my young day, actually I do not know how to ride bicycle. Okay, so I go and learn motorbike because I want to prove that I cannot crawl, I can run. I just want to prove the theory may be wrong. So I go to Ang Mo Kio Test Center and I enroll for the course without knowing how to ride bicycle. So you will know what is going to happen. I fell down left, right, center. Every time got blue, black here and there. So I was there learning motorcycle for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Until the instructor told me, no, Gigi, come. Tolong lah, mai lai liao lah, please lah. 3.5 years leh. Please don't come already, okay? You know what? I never give up. After 3.5 years, on the 8 attempts, I finally passed my motorcycle. I was very proud with it because determination and hard work, I think it paid off. So I worked in Singapore for quite some time. During my late 20s, I joined one of the very reputable companies in Singapore. I was sent to China. And there I had my career in China for 20 years. I worked as a finance manager and also as financial controller, and also later as a MNC CEO, and also promoted to be a listed company CFO. Actually, I was having a very comfortable life, and I can actually go for retirement already. I don't have to be struggle so hard already. I think I have earned, I will not say a lot of money, but enough for retirement, and I can give my family, my parents a good life also. However, on end of March, doctor called me. So say, Gigi, can you come back to Singapore or not? So after receiving the call from doctor, I thinking, doctor already 80 years old already. He worked so hard for Singaporean. I only 50 plus. Okay, he can sacrifice so much for us. Actually, doctor can at home and still he come up for Singaporean. Why can't we? Why can't me to do something for our country? And because I really want to salute and thanks the Singaporean, the guy, for serving the NS. For me as a lady, what can I do for you? I also want to service our country. Sincerely, I understand our Singaporean, now we have something in our heart, in our mind. We've got difficulty, we're suffering something that we dare not to say out. So I'm stepping forward to join the party. Hopefully one day I can be in the parliament. I want to voice up for you, whatever you dare not to say. I want to help you, our Singaporean, because I am the daughter of Singapore. I'm coming back to be with you, helping Singapore to change the day we're supposed to be enjoying our happy life and not struggling so hard, so difficult. We want a happy tomorrow. From now onward, I'm here with you, 100% serving the party, serving our fellow Singaporeans. Thank you. Back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there, Georgine. Wow, you are one tough lady, man. When to get a motorcycle license over 3 years until the instructor or the tester said to you, tolong, no need to come anymore. But you still persevered. Yeah, you still persevered. And for that, you deserve a pat on the back, okay? That means you have a never say die attitude. And I like people like that who never say die. Huh? All right, folks, we've got 2 more persons that I'd like to introduce to you. The next person, he used to be the publisher of The Independent. I'm sure you have seen his company. They publish articles online, and he's into many other things as well. He has given up being a publisher of The Independent, and I'd like to introduce my good buddy, and his name is Kumaran Pillai. Welcome, Kumaran, and say hello to all of Singapore who's watching us right now.
Thanks, Craig. Good evening, everyone. I'm a third generation Singaporean, which means I was born in KK Hospital. And I want to get that out of the way because I don't want 2 months down the road, one of you to come up and ask me when I came to Singapore. It's my favorite bugbear. I come from very humble beginnings. My father was a civil servant and he remained in the police force till the day he retired. Growing up in Singapore back in the 70s, that was full of hope. Each day held out a promise that tomorrow would be better. And there was always something good to look out for. But you know what happens? When I talk to my friends who are in the 40s and when I speak to them, I feel a sense of despair. I feel a sense of hopelessness. I feel a sense that they have given up. How can this be so? How can a country that was so full of promise and hope be beaten by forces beyond our control? Or is this a folly of our own making? Have we been waylaid by our political elite, guided by values that are so no longer fundamental to the original ethos and tenets of our founding fathers? We are called Singapore Inc. today. Is that what we have become? An economic digit to be exploited by market forces, abetted by a government that has sold us out in the name of SECA, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. I say, by all accounts, this trade agreement is incomprehensible. The benefits accrued are lopsided. DBS has become the largest foreign bank in India, for example, but it is at our expense. And the PMETs are left to fend for themselves in the wake of an economic downturn. The promise of a new world is no longer true. The promise that the government has the best interests at heart is something that you need to ask yourself. When you see someone in the eye, you know that he is no longer hopeful of a better tomorrow. You know that it is time has come for a change. What we have is PMETs losing their jobs and not being able to get back on their feet. This July or September or whenever the elections is held, we are going to send them a message. You and I are going to send the message that there is no such thing as free lunch or $1 million salaries for ministers. The government has no right to trade our jobs in the name of economic progress that only benefits the elite. This is not trickle down economics, it's trickle up economics. So join me, friends, join my party colleagues, and let's fight to get back our jobs, our pride and dignity. I'm Kumaran Pillai. I'm here today with my colleagues from PSP to serve you. Singapore deserves better. You deserve better. With that note, back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there. Wow, very powerful delivery there from Kumaran. And we've spoken with so much conviction. So we're going to hope to see all of you when the G is around. All of you will be marching in together with Dr. Tan Cheng Bock and create the change we so badly need in Singapore. And of course, I've saved the youngest for last. He is the baby in the group, but do not let his youthfulness, give you any doubts about this person. He may be young, but I always tell him you have the longer time than most of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, a lawyer in training from NUS. This is Chu Sean Ming. Sean, the floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Hi， 大家好，我叫崔宣明，今日23歲，而家在 NUS 讀書。So for my non-Cantonese speaking friends, it was just a short introduction about myself. My name is Chu Sean Ming. Short, you can call me Sean for short, and I'm currently a lawyer in training over at NUS. So I feel very privileged and blessed to be able to be learning from the best legal minds in Singapore and learning about some of our laws and the challenges that we face in the legal sector, as well as some of the broader national issues like constitutional issues that affect our country. A little bit more about myself. I like to find a chance to give back as well where I can with the legal skills that I picked up, given the opportunities that have been afforded to me here. So I also try to attend free pro bono talks, give legal talks over at NUS. But as you can imagine now, because of Zoom, we are unable to meet face to face. So we adapt because of COVID to meet over Zoom. And it has been an interesting experience to try to speak to people across the virtual platforms to talk about important issues like wills, lasting power of attorney, and advanced medical directives. All these are important information that Singaporeans need to be equipped with. So I try to give back as much as I can. And in fact, we give these talks in even other languages. So you see me speak a bit of Cantonese just now, and sometimes we give the talks in Chinese and Malay for our more older generation who prefer it in a language that they are more familiar with. So I think that's just a short introduction about myself. I look forward to interacting more and answering some of your questions later. Back to you, Craig. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's Chu Sean Ming. We all call him Sean. Okay, folks, we're going to do a poll right now. We are bringing up the first poll of the evening, and only the people who are in the Zoom platform are able to participate in the poll. So can we bring on the first question? The first question, you have four options there to choose. The first question is, the government has handled the COVID-19 pandemic well. Do you agree, somewhat disagree, or D, disagree? So folks, if you can see the poll questions, we encourage you to participate, and we will throw these questions out to the panel as well later, besides the other questions that are coming in from the Zoom platform and also from Facebook Live. The second question, the CECA, which is Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, has benefited Singaporeans. And again, the same option, agree, somewhat disagree, or disagree. And the third question for the first poll is, HDB leases are a ticking time bomb, and you have the same four options to choose from. So once you have done that very quickly now, then I'm going to open up to the floor. If you have done and answered the questions, submit your questions. That'd be great. We can go on and we'll throw the first question out to the panel. Okay, I have my first question here for the panel, and let's see who is the one that wants to take on this first question. This one I have from Nikki Ng, Miss Nikki Ng from Tampines. If PSP candidates are voted into Parliament in the upcoming 2020 general elections, will you fight for the scrapping of the impending 9% GST hike after the said general elections, as we already statistically known to be living in the most expensive country in the world? So will PSP be scrapping the impending 9% GST hike if you guys are voted, not if lah, when you guys are voted into Parliament? So let's see which of the panel members would like to answer this question. Let's see who would like to answer this question. Anyone? What is PSP stance on this question?
Come on, any one of you, come. This is an easy question, right? We have all this in our policy paper. Huh?
Manwai, why don't you answer this question? Huh?
No, I think one of them should answer.
It's okay. It's okay. It's the first question. So let's just start the ball rolling then. Huh?
Okay. In our policy paper, Progress Singapore Party policy paper, definitely we are proposing a 5-year freeze. Okay, not just on GST, but also all the other public services fees. Okay, we don't think there's a need for the government to raise taxes and public services fees at this moment. Okay, we still need to assess later on, but we have tentatively put a 5-year stop, okay, to any of the increases. Okay, the economy is facing unprecedented problems now, okay, with the COVID. And what is more important is that the whole world is actually moving in a direction that could be as bad as the Great Depression in the 1930s. Okay, so we must be very careful about taking money away from the economy. We have to reflate the economy a lot going forward. So definitely we are against the increase of the GST to 9%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's Leong Man Wai, who is the Assistant Sec-Gen of Progress Singapore Party. Okay, we have another question now, and this is directed at Tan Meng Wah. is put here. You mentioned in your opening introduction that the government is now focusing on generating wealth. How is that bad? Is it not good that people are getting wealthier as a result of wealth generation? Could you explain a bit more?
Okay, thank you for this question. Who is that from? Okay, Rose, right? Is it Rose?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure because
Hi,
I'm not
Rose.
able to monitor. Yeah.
Thank you for asking the question. Okay, the problem with wealth generation is, if we look at the economic history of Singapore and before 2000 and after year 2000, okay, what is the difference? Okay, Singapore government actually controls two very important resources. What are two important resources? Actually, people and land. Okay, before year 2000, for example, we have very young population, as what my fellow panelists mentioned just now. You know, during the 70s, everything was looking up. Everybody was hopeful. Everybody was very happy with how the economy was progressing and so on. Why? Because the population was young, and what we were having was what we call demographic dividend. And Singapore government was actually growing the economy using this demographic dividend to generate GDP. And the GDP, the increasing GDP creates job and, you know, allows the SME to grow also. So as a result, during the 70s, 80s, everybody was actually benefiting from the economic growth. Okay, and notably, as I said, two resources. One is people, the other resource is land. Okay, during the 70s and 80s, land was actually quite cheap. So land was actually used to support economic growth for the benefit of everybody. Okay, but by the 1990s, you know, land prices were going up, value of land was going up because of economic growth. And after the turn of the century, you know, what we saw was because of aging population, Singapore was actually losing the demographic dividend, and the government actually, there was a shift in emphasis, as I said. Instead of using demographic dividend to generate GDP, actually the emphasis switched to using land to generate wealth. Okay, now as you put it, you know, wealth is good. It makes everybody wealthy and so on. But if you get to keep the wealth, that's true. I give you an example. In late 1980s, to extract the land dividend, government actually repositioned the public housing from affordable public housing to investment assets. And by repositioning it as an investment asset, actually land cost was actually included in the public housing pricing. As a result, within 1 or 2 decades, actually housing prices went up very quickly. All right, so it gives the people the impression that, okay, the rising prices actually create wealth. But it is true only for the first few generations of Singaporeans who bought houses before the 1980s. Okay, they benefited from the wealth, the land dividend. All right, they enjoyed the land dividend. But those who actually bought after that, actually, they were actually paying very high housing costs for the public housing. So all the savings in the CPF actually are transferred to HDB, all right, to pay for the high land cost. So you have a house as of growing value, you know, but actually you will not be able to realize it until you sell it. And the worst thing is that there's a lease expiry. You have a 99-year lease. So actually your wealth is actually declining year after year. All right, and so, you know, you think that you're actually benefiting from the wealth generation, you are not. Okay, now that's high housing cost. Another aspect is actually, you know, after year 2000, all the malls and, you know, commercial industrial properties were actually purchased over by what we call real estate investment trust. And because they monopolize the supply, they push up the renters. And the renters also, you know, eventually the high renters had to be transferred to the consumer, resulting in high living costs. So now what we see in Singapore is a high housing cost, high living costs, and so on. So wealth generation, yes, but the question is who actually benefit from the wealth generation? Actually, because of the public housing, actually, wealth is being transferred from a household to the state. Okay, because of the high land costs in the public housing. So actually, if you really look at it, wealth generation only benefits a small portion of people, and the rest of people, they actually suffer because of the wealth generation in terms of high housing costs, high living costs, and so on. Okay, I hope that answered your question. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you very much there, Menghua. And what happened was, like as you say, from income generation to wealth generation, right? And who are the people with wealth? Those people already have money, so they have assets, So are we creating more jobs? That's the big question. Okay, folks, I have a question now from the poll that we conducted. The first question, just to give you guys an idea, the first one out of the first question that we asked was, the government has handled the COVID-19 pandemic well. Wow, 43% disagree. 31% somewhat disagree. So only 3% agree that they handled it well. Wow, so that means how Singaporeans feel. That means generally they don't think that the COVID-19 situation was handled very well in Singapore. So anyone from the panel would like to take on this thing?
Craig,
yes.
I think since I wrote the article on the mishandling.
Yes, no worries. Go ahead. Yeah, it is all yours. It is all yours.
Yes.
Very good.
I have to fight off the rest.
Yeah.
Leave it to me.
Don't have to feel bad that you're hogging the limelight. No worries.
Okay.
Yeah, you have done your research, you see.
Okay, I'm glad that most people think that most of the people who took part in the poll disagree that the government has not done well in handling the COVID-19. As I said, a lot of details are already in the Facebook page, and I don't think I want to go through all the details and all the sequence and so on. So, but my point is that even though the writing is about COVID-19, actually the point that I'm trying to make in my writing is actually the governance model. Okay, the first sentence, the first paragraph, first sentence of my writing, already tells everything, that the seed of the mishandling has been sowed the moment the MTF Ministerial Task Force was formed. Why? Because they were all made up of ministers. Now it shows the mindset of the ruling party, when they formed the task force. Okay, and the mindset is that this is opportunity to make a political to make it a political success because of the impending GE. Okay, and if they are able to demonstrate that the ministers, the 4G leaders are able to tackle the crisis, then they will gain the trust of people, and they make the assumption based on what they learned in SARS. Okay, but COVID-19 and SARS are they are quite different, and Singapore is also quite different compared to 2003. We are more open globally. Okay, there are more foreigners coming in. Our population has grown, but the most important thing is actually, SARS, can only be contagious when symptoms are shown, whereas COVID-19 can be asymptomatic. That means they can be contagious even before symptoms are shown. And that information was already available, I think, let me see, on 14th of January. And our task force was set up only on the 22nd of January. Meaning, because of the SARS experience, all right, they make a lot of assumptions. All right, and why? Because they were politically motivated to want to, handle the crisis in such a way that allows them to demonstrate that they are, able to handle the crisis and go on to do the GE. Okay, now the political emphasis is very important because why? Let me just use one case, one decision that they make to demonstrate the issue. All right, the face mask issue. The question is not really, the important thing is not that whether we should or should not wear face mask. It's the process of arriving at a question. Actually, the face mask issue, as I mentioned in the writing, there are actually two questions. One question is, should we wear face mask? Second question is, do we have enough face mask? Okay, rightfully, the sequence is important. Okay, should we wear? Yes, we need to wear face masks, and how to make sure that everybody has a face mask or some kind of protective barriers. And informations were really available, by February and so on, that, there was transmission and so on. And yet, the task force actually, stick on to their policies of no face mask. All right. So, the decision making shows a certain mindset, the governance model. I use that to answer another question. We talk about income inequality. Okay. Minimum wage, for example. Actually, it's also two questions. Question is, should we have minimum wage or should we not have? And then how do we implement minimum wage? Okay. And right now, with the same governance model, all right, we cannot implement minimum wage, but because it's going to cause economic disruption. As a result, all right, we should not have minimum wage. Okay, again, that decision process will lead to certain solutions that may be politically expedient, but may not be good for Singapore as a whole in the long term. So that's the point that I was trying to say. And, and overall, even though the task force recovered very quickly by implementing the fiscal policies and so on, the 4 packages to help the, SMEs and households and so on, but the damage was really done because of wrong decisions that they made. And as a result, the circuit breaker was implemented, and because of circuit breaker, a lot of livelihood is affected. SMEs, a lot of SMEs, may not be able to survive even with the even with the fiscal support. So we need to really look at the governance model and ask the question whether whether we are having the best leader in place, whether as what Kumaran and Kim Ping just now mentioned, what is the objective of the 4G leader? Are they working for the interests of Singapore as a whole, or are they working for the interests of specific groups of people, elites, or or what we call vested interests? So this is a question that Singaporeans have to ask themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Meng Wah. And yes, that was your take on the COVID-19 and the things that going on with it. And sometimes it's also quite funny in Singapore, in the sense that why our political leaders are always trying to score points on the international stage. So they were reveling in the adoration given that Singapore did so well in handling the COVID-19. Even Barbara Streisand, the American singer, was singing praises about that, and WHO and all this. And after that, things went a bit south, and we know what's happening in Singapore now. Okay, folks, moving on to the next poll question. Can my admin people please flash the results on the screen, please, for the second admin poll that was taken? I have one with me, and no, the results. What I wanted is the results. If you can show me the results, not the questions. I have the question. The question is CECA, which is a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement with India, has benefited Singapore, and agree is only 3%. Disagree is 43%. Strongly disagree, somewhat disagree. So generally, most people disagree. Who in the panel there would like to speak a little bit about CECA?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Oh, okay, sure, Kumaran, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So the official response to CECA from the government is that CECA has created more jobs for locals. And there's a kind of a dissonance. While the ministers are saying that, people don't feel it. And in fact, SDP wrote something like this, saying that PMATs were losing out to foreigners, and they were poff-marked. That's a different issue. All I'd like to talk about is CECA and the mass migration that has taken place. Growing up in school, if I remember correctly, the population of Indians was 4 to 5%. Today is about 10 to 11%. And with falling TFR, where did all these additional bodies come from, right? People come from. So obviously there was some kind of migration that took place. But more important is that in an interview with SCMP, I said there are actually integration issues. That means when you have a local population of Indians, and then you suddenly transplant all these people into Singapore, you're actually facing some issues with that as well. And that is something that the government has not been able to get a handle on. That's something that we need to look at very closely. There has been a lot of public outrage and backlash to individuals. I think there was a case of one PMAT lashing out at a taxi driver. These are instances which shows that we can't always do things for economic benefits. And I also mentioned earlier that this trade agreement, right, economic cooperation, it's rather unique. Unlike a free trade agreement where you have exchange of goods, here the MNCs get to go to India, and in return we are bringing all these Indian professionals, PMATs, and then creating IT jobs for them. And there's a certain clause there that means if, for example, Infosys or Wipro has an office in Singapore, someone joins Wipro and all he has to do is serve in Wipro for slightly more than 6 months. He qualifies for an automatic visa into Singapore, or employment pass or S pass, right? The question is, why can't locals fill those roles, right? I mean, if there were projects, if there were opportunities, I think we should have had a way of dealing with this in a more sustainable way. Now, I attended a talk by Lin Swee Say. This was a couple of years ago, if I remember. It was in 2011, soon after the elections. He spoke about localization. It's a funny word, right? So it's about local workforce, and then you bring global talent into it. And as a result, we have locals learning from the international or foreign talents, and we are able to bring the level of enterprise or business or competency levels up. But I don't see that happening, frankly. I mean, and if I can touch on migration economics, back in the 19th century, when people started moving from Europe to America, it's very clear. The Italians moved, formed enclaves in the US. The Germans moved, they formed enclaves. Usually one guy will go across and then he'll bring his family and his entire village over. It's happening here in Singapore. And we just have to open our eyes and see it for ourselves. There are a lot of social issues, economic issues, job losses, which needs to be addressed. And I'm afraid the government is just sweeping things under the carpet. And that's my response, Craig.
Right, thank you very much there, Kumaran. Your response there to SICA has benefited Singaporeans, and most have said it doesn't. Okay, folks, the last question from the poll. HDB leases
Craig,
are a
can
ticking...
I just add to Kumaran's?
Yeah, sure. Yes, Harish.
Craig,
No
can
problem.
I just add to what Kumaran had said?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Being from the IT industry, and I see this all the time. One of the, it's a very fine balance that we are playing, and I don't think it's tipping to Singapore's favor. The balance is the issue that we have actually a shortfall of skilled software engineers and developers who are locally trained and and has experience locally from local universities and institutions of higher learning. Part of the problem has been because over the last 20 years, the shift in, if you go to the universities, in the education in computer science, for example, it changed from, learning how to code, write a line of code to fix things, to build systems, to one of becoming eventually someone to do middle management, project management kind of stuff. Not the hardcore skills on how to write a piece of code, to build a solution, build a product, to serve a particular and solve a particular problem. We lost a whole, I would say almost a whole generation of potential engineers who could have filled those roles. So in light of that and the growth of the rest of the IT industry in the last 20 years, there has been a significant demand for people with those kinds of skills. And one of the challenge we had was because we were not training our own people to have opportunity to fill in those roles, it became harder and harder to get the local resources. And so whether the resources are filled by people coming in under the SICA or any other deal, this was a reality that we were facing. The problem had to do with, because training and skills development is a fairly long-term, mid to long-term activity. It's not a overnight kind of thing. It takes time to build it up. And that's where we failed. We failed very miserably in the early part of this century. It has been corrected in the last 4 to 5 years, but again, it's going to take some time to stem that problem. So my sense of it is that SICA, has it benefited Singapore? Perhaps to a little bit, but could we be getting more Singaporeans part of it instead of being filled by people fulfilling the SICA gap? I think that's something that we need to address as a PSP to fix that loophole, because clearly there is a loophole that therefore doesn't incentivize our locals to be able to take up those roles. Back to you, Craig. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harish. And yeah, of course, SICA is a sensitive issue. We don't sound xenophobic and say we don't welcome people, but it could be, as you said, maybe in the education, it wasn't given priority. So, okay, let me move on to the next question and see which of the panel from the poll. HDB leases are a ticking time bomb. And can my admin please flash the results of the poll? And I can see from my side here, yes, agree, as high as 64% and 20%. Only a very minute 3% don't think it's going to be a problem or ticking problem. So there we have it for the third question. Can we show the third one? We're on the third question now. You're still flashing the second. My admin, can we please flash onto the third screen if you have it with you? Anyway, I've just shared with the audience that many people think it's going to be a problem. The third question was HDB leases are a ticking time bomb. So who among the panelists would like to give your views on this particular topic?
Craig, I think I take on this one.
Sure.
Okay. Just like the jobs issue for the PMAT and in relation to the SECA arrangement, this one is another ticking time bomb. Okay, it's a hot issue that our country is facing. Okay, so for the HDB lease, okay, why is it a ticking time bomb? Because for any asset price, when the market has factored in the expectation that in this case, the asset is a permanent asset. And then now suddenly, although according to all the legal documents or that, yeah, no doubt it's a 99-year lease, but that is not the market expectation. The market expectation is that it is a permanent lease, a permanent asset. Okay, so that is very serious in terms of when you enter into the mechanics of asset pricing, because the market has priced the asset as a permanent asset. So now the asset has come down a bit, our old flats, but it's holding up a bit because the government has come out to suggest some solution, like the VER and all that, okay? So, but if eventually these solutions turn out to be not feasible, the whole thing is going to collapse. So there is a very serious financial and economic risk to this HDB lease problem. At the same time, it is also a very serious political problem because the politicians have promised the Singaporeans that it is a permanent asset. So it is a ticking time bomb, in my opinion, from both the economic and the political angle. Okay, and to further elaborate on the economic angle is that like all the banks and the financial system is already geared to treating the lease as a permanent asset. Okay, so if really that the lease is confirmed to be not a permanent asset, then the banking system will also have to make a lot of adjustment. So I agree with what the panel results has come out, that this indeed is a ticking time bomb, and it is going to be one of the very important issue that that PSP recommend the government to come up with a solution as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Craig, I'd like to jump in. Just
Sure.
add on a couple of things.
Yes. No problem.
From a different perspective, actually, the HDB, when it started off in the early 60s, 70s, it was supposed to be a low-cost housing program meant to provide low-cost housing to people. The problem started when we start to price land into or impute the cost of land into the HDB price. And this land is priced at market rate or market price, and this could be as high as 60% of the original HDB flat. So you have a flat for 500,000, as much as 60%, which is 300,000 of that is going to land cost. So even if you take a percentage to pay for land lease rather than land cost, it will be much lower than that. So it's a taking time from the fact that not only it soaks up all your CPF money, leaving you with no money to retire, because you're going to take much bigger loan to pay for your flat for a longer period. In my days when I started owning my first 5-room flat, it was for 15 years loan. And I remember it was $36,500 on the 13th floor. So, you look at the prices now. At the end of the day, you end up with a generation with no money retiring because it's all being soaked up. And the asset appreciation is nothing but a myth. So you're not going to sell away your flat and nowhere to stay. And the sales program is not going to apply to everybody either. So it's going to be a tough question, but I think the biggest policy mistake, was to enhance or give the impression to people that it's an asset enhancement policy, making people feel rich because a flat is now worth 2 times or whatever the value it was, but it's just paper money. At the same time, you have no cash to retire. So it's more than a ticking time bomb. I say it's going to be a disaster. And it's going to be a serious problem that we have to look at and resolve right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Francis. Okay, folks, we just have it sounds quite heavy now. Let's lighten the mood a little bit, okay? And can we have the first trivia question coming up here? So for all of you who are logging in through either Zoom or on Facebook Live, we are going to put up the first trivia question. And just to give you guys a quick understanding again, we have the lovely prizes in front of you. We have PSP t-shirts 5 to be given away for this first trivia question. Okay, can we go to the question, please? 5 PSP t-shirts to be given away. So the first trivia question, folks, name any 5 CEC members of PSP. For those that joined us right at the beginning, I already told you there are some CEC members here, at least 3 of them. If you count Doc also, there's already 4 of them. So send your answers to contact@psp.org.sg. The first 5 correct answers will win one of the 5 nice polo t-shirts from PSP. It'll be given to you, and I believe the collection point will be at the PSP HQ, which is located on the 14th floor of Bukit Timah Shopping Center. And if you want to take the MRT there, it will be by the downtown line, and you alight at Beauty World Station. Okay, so good luck to all of you who wants to take part in the trivia question. The question again, name any 5 CEC members of PSP. And a big hint I can give you is that 4 of them are on the panel tonight. So you just got to look for 1 more CEC member. Okay, folks, let's go back to the panel again. And I have one question. This question is from Raman, also named Raman. What a coincidence, right? So he says, according to a Malay MP, the Malay students have made admirable progress in education. Why are Singapore Malays still lagging behind in education attainment? So Raman, will you want to answer that question? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Yes.
Yeah, Raman answering a question from Raman also.
Yes, what a small world.
Yeah, I think the education attainment by the Malay community has been a major concern because there were some actually successes, I should say, but the success is still below the national average. So like in, I got some figures in myself, we have 93% of Malays actually cohort from primary 1 progress to, they call it post-secondary. But the national average is about 96%, so it's still below. Now, the other thing is, the other problem that I think everybody should know is that when we lump all together as post-secondary, we are not actually looking at how many percent the cohort from primary one to the university, cohort from primary one progress to polytechnic, and the cohort primary one progress to ITE. So if you separate them, then the result will be very disappointing. So why I think it's been lumped together as post-secondary, I think the people behind these figures that they produce have to answer it. Why are they not making it very, very transparent, very clear, so that we can understand how many percent of these Malay students progress to the university, how many actually progress to the polytechnic, and actually majority, as I can see it, everybody knows that most of the Malays actually, they are actually overly represented in progressing in the ITE. So why the question is why they are still lagging behind? I think we have to look at the effort made by the party that actually responsible for this. Since 1982, Mendaki was formed. That was about 28 years ago. So for 28 years, what sort of progress are we expecting? I think 28 years is a very long time. 28 years is a period whereby we can actually harness all the resources. We can actually produce more qualified Malays to take up very big jobs so that they themselves can educate their children as well. So what is the problem then? Then it could be many. First thing is that we have to examine how many percent of those money that has been given by the government to Mendaki is spent on support in tuition fees. Now, there's so many activities being conducted by Mendaki. We know that through a lot of dissemination of information, I should say publicity, a lot of activities being actually undertaken by Mendaki. But whether those activities are helping directly towards the progress of the educational attainment of the Malays, this is very important. So we have to examine. I suspect that not enough money is spent on this. Other money are spent on, okay, overheads. I mean, we understand, but probably some activities could be actually reduced, actually, to allow more money to be channeled to students who really need the help. Now, lately we have this requirement for IT tools, like laptops. Students have to actually be issued with. And we also know that the Malays are overly represented at the lower hierarchy of our economy. So naturally, they live in smaller houses. And with, let's say, few children, you can't have privacy, you can't have a conducive environment that you can actually get them to concentrate on their studies. So these are the areas I know Mendaki is doing some work on this, but is it enough? Other than having all those activities, why don't you pay more attention on this aspect? So this is the thing that we are concerned about, the progress of the Malay students actually in educational attainment, getting higher qualifications.
Right, thank you. Anything else you want to add on, or is that sort of what you wanted to talk about, Rahman? Is it okay?
Yeah, I think unless there are further questions, actually, I'm very happy.
Okay, the next question I have is from Ivan Tan. Okay, Ivan Tan is asking, healthcare costs are going up globally. With our aging population, what would be your proposal to keep it affordable without an increase in taxes? So yeah, that's something that on the minds of many Singaporeans as well. Healthcare costs is just going up, and you've heard of families that go bankrupt because they they have to pay the healthcare costs that runs in a few 100,000, and they have to sell their HDB flat. They're being hounded to pay off. So anyone from the panel here would like to take a stab at this question? on the aging population and healthcare costs going up, how can we propose to keep it affordable without increase in taxes? Anyone, or maybe Doc wants to handle this because being a doctor.
No, we don't get
Right.
Doc.
Okay.
Doc.
I think
Okay.
healthcare costs should depend on the system that Singapore adopts. Currently, we chose curative system to manage health. And when it's cured, that means you're looking for a cure. But ideally, we should prevent. Prevention is always better than cure. Our system is based on curative system. And curative system is actually hospital-based. And being hospital-based is going to be very, very expensive. And you've seen for yourself the big hospitals were built. And all this, there's a lot of cost involved. So this is eating up a lot of our MediSave and all the taking and raising the cost of treatment. We should move, and PSP will move from this curative system to the preventive system. So if we have adopted a preventive healthcare system where the cost is so much lower, then you don't have to worry for having to use so much of your MediSave. You must remember MediSave can only be used when you go to hospital. And that is where the high cost. So I hope that in future, we should be able to make a paradigm shift from the curative care to a preventive care. And when we talk about preventive care, there's a lot of things involved. It's not just building polyclinics. It is not just building a lot of small community-based hospitals. No, it's a series of change. And this change involves many what they call allied medical healthcare services, which is actually, I won't want to use this occasion to elaborate. But what I want to emphasize, for the healthcare cost to come down, if we stick to the current curative method of managing health, it will not come down. So your paradigm shift must be made from this preventive care from this curative care over to the preventive care. And so your funding must change. So if you look at the health funding, how much of this health funding, how much of this budget goes to preventive health care, for example? During my time, it's only about 25, 30%. And most of it go to 70% go to the curative care. And that is where the high cost. So it's easy for those who are managing healthcare to have a ready source of funding. So whenever they want to do anything or have anything, any programs, they always say, don't worry, MediSave is going to pay for you in the hospital. So we must move away from that curative method of treating health to the preventive. That means we must always stay healthy. So next time, when starting from primary school, we must teach our students how to stay healthy. Then we must have a good program of making sure that up to secondary school and even tertiary school, how they should take care of the health. Because the health costs will always go up in years to come. And to prevent it, you have to take responsibility. It's a responsibility of the individual to make sure he stays healthy, exercise well. That is the best way to cut down health costs. And to do that, we have to have a set of programs to help you achieve it. And that is in the preventive side. So if we hope to see any change to bring down health costs, that is you must change the whole system. It's a very, very, it's a political will to do that. And if you don't have that political will, we'll stick to this current system of managing health through hospitals, which is not the right way, as I said. Let us move over to the other side, where we manage health outside the hospital, cheaper and also more relevant to the community. So that's what I want to tell you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Doc.
allow me to also add on to what Doc has just said. I think he raises a very important point about the fundamental shift that we need to have in terms of thinking previously from a curative approach to now a patient-centered approach. And as he mentioned, the current issue now is that because we take a provider-oriented model, there is a focus on two aspects, one which is a fee for service, and the second which is subvention, which means that the government basically gives a grant of money for healthcare. And this model actually, in a way, is beneficial in the sense that it incentivizes a high volume of healthcare, meaning there's a lot of services provided, but it results in a lower quality of care overall. And what now moving on, if we were to say, what would it look like if we were to move towards a patient-oriented approach, would actually be something that we need to consider as a fundamental change. And the reason for this is actually quite important, which is that, you know, the patient himself is the one in charge of his health. And so he is the primary stakeholder in the healthcare system. So that is really the model that we must adopt. Good. And as a statistic, I mean, I attended a talk, and this healthcare professor mentioned that, you know, in the 5,000 or so waking hours that a patient has a year, he makes 3,000 active decisions over the course of that year. Active decisions about his own health. In contrast, when you go to the doctor, he only goes, you know, once or twice a year. So the patient himself must feel that he is responsible, because ultimately the decision rests with him. You know, you see the doctor twice a year, but you make 3,000 decisions about your own health every year. So when we move towards a patient-centered approach and recognize the importance that a patient is the one who is responsible, and then we go from there to say that how can we take preventive steps beforehand to make sure the situation, the medical situation, does not worsen and conditions do not deteriorate further. So I think that is another dimension I would like to add to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much there, Sean. Okay, thank you. And just to go back to what Doc said, you know, the preventive model is there's a saying, right? Prevention is better than cure. So that should be the thing. But do we have the political will, and are we willing to make that paradigm shift, which is so important? Okay, folks, we're going to do the second poll now. Can we bring on the poll questions, please, for our viewers to participate? And for those who are joining us on Facebook, you can't participate in the poll right now, but it will come on later at the end of the show, okay? For those who are joining us on Facebook Live. Okay, question number 4. Singapore, I'm looking, okay. Oh, they're okay, Singaporeans have little savings for their retirement in spite of our CPF system. So once again, the question is, Singaporeans have little savings for their retirement in spite of our CPF system. Do you agree? Somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, or disagree? That's the first question. And the second question will be the increase in water tariffs in 2017 caused another round of price increases for kopi gao or kopi siu tai subsequently. Did the water tax or water tariff cause the price increase? That means as part of our cost of living issues here, did it cause the price that have a multiply effect? That's the second question. And the third question, which has already been answered, is healthcare affordable in Singapore? So very quickly now, we hope to get your answers, and then very soon we will get the responses from all of you as well. Now, in the meantime, now it's about almost 9:35. It's time for me to ask the second trivia question. Can we put up the second trivia question, please? The first trivia question was, name 5 members of the CEC, of which 4 are in the panel. So can my admin people bring on my next question for the trivia? Okay, this one is very important. How many Otakon mascots are there in the cover photo of the PSP Facebook page? And for this, you will be winning the nice cap from PSP. Okay, 5 caps will be given away, and you send your answers once again by email to contact@psp.org.sg. So the question again is how many Otakon mascots are there in the cover photo of the PSP Facebook page? The number is a bit rounded lah. So if you get my hint. Okay, let's bring on the panelists again, and let's see if we have got the results from the poll. So by the way, this is the cap. This is the very nice PSP cap. Okay, so you'll be winning one of these for the second trivia question. And let's see. Singaporeans have little savings for their retirement in spite of our CPF. Wow, a whopping 66% agreed, and only 7% thinks is enough. Okay, that's the first survey. The second one, the increase in water tariffs in 2017 caused another round of price increases of kopi kao or kopi siew dai subsequently. Agree, wow, 56% of the people responded to that. And what about the third one? Healthcare is affordable in Singapore. Who agrees or disagree? I think the answer is going to be pretty obvious. Okay, folks, so for my panel right now, for this question, Singaporeans have little savings for their retirement in spite of our CPF system. Which panel would like to add on to the survey results? Any one of our panelists would like to add on?
I will take on this one.
Sure, Jijin. Yeah, go ahead.
My surrounding friends or relatives, I would say that they do not have much saving. Despite of now the COVID-19, I think we're going to eat up more into the resources of their saving also. Because you're looking at normal Singaporean families, we have to pay for the housing. Despite some of the money can be from the CPF, but we may have to top up a little bit from their own salary to pay for the housing loan, education of the kids, and the maintenance of themselves, if they got a car to pay or parents to support. So actually, most of the Singaporeans, they have very little saving or maybe not enough for 6 months. And despite most Singaporeans, they like to go to holidays every year. And with our high cost of standard of living in Singapore, most of our Singaporeans, I believe, they do not have much of saving. So they're all relying on the CPF. Most of my friends at my age, they are all looking forward for 55. They can draw some money from the CPF. They are planning for the holidays. So I think now it comes to a situation that is quite serious. The situation that get worsened off with this COVID-19, and it run into our personal reserve. So I strongly agree with the point that we do not have much saving for our retirements. So back to you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to add on to what Eugene has just said, or do we move on to the next?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what's interesting is the government's response to retirement adequacy. And they come up with this very unique term, right-size your house. That means if you're living in a maisonette, you can downgrade to a 4-room. If you're living in a 4-room, you can move to a studio apartment, right? And that's the idea of funding your retirement. So you need to sell the property, the house that you've lived in all your life, to make sure that you have enough savings to for your last few years of your life. That is quite sad because I have actually spoken about this before. In Singapore, the retirement scheme is rather unique, where you have just the employers and employees contributing to it. It's a laissez-faire system, and it is a very historical thing. So when the British wanted to implement a retirement planning scheme in Singapore, they didn't want to fund retirement programs for colonies that were outside Great Britain. But 60 years on, we are still sticking to the old system, right? And maybe at some stage, the government needs to intervene, needs to consider investing and funding our retirement program. So that's one thing that the government can do. That's something that we can seriously consider. But there are a lot of competing needs, right? I mean, there's healthcare, we need a fixed economy, we got to make sure that there's enough for our retirement. That needs to be considered, and we need to balance the different needs or the challenges that Singapore is facing today. But I won't rule that out, that in the future, that a government, whether it's a current government or future government, will have to fund our retirement programs.
If I could jump in to add on a little bit, Craig.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because it's an important subject enough, I'd like to dwell a little bit on the CPF issue. I alluded to the fact that, large portion of our CPF is being absorbed by the housing payment. you take a step back on first principle, why was CPF introduced? It was meant to be a retirement scheme back in the days, 60s, 70s. And then we started to add on the burden of funding your flats with CPF, and then started to fund medical expenses through your CPF. That is okay when your CPF balance, there's a balance that allows you to have enough left over for retirement. The problem starts when an inordinate amount of this, of your CPF, is being soaked up by these two major elements. And one way to look at it is, how do we make sure that instead of soaking up your CPF money, you actually allow for more CPF money, the original money, to remain? How do you do it? One is, I mentioned earlier on, housing costs. You tackle that, you solve part of the problem. The second, as Dr. Tan mentioned, is your medical costs. You know, your medical insurance debt. Shouldn't the government bear a larger portion? My colleague Manwai has a position of, when we say that we should ask the government to bear all the medical insurance, which means you're actually transferring more funding into the CPF for retirement. That is very important. And I allude to another third factor. We just spent 52 billion from our reserves. Now people are asking the question, how much of the 52 billion is that as a proportion of our total reserve? We do not have a clue what the reserve is. All we know is we have a large reserve, supposedly a healthy reserve. And why wouldn't we, in the first place, use some of the reserve earlier on to help in this process of making housing affordable and healthcare affordable? So today, a large proportion of our population has decent CPF remaining in our account to withdraw, if not at 55, probably at 60, and yet have enough for annuity payment all the way to 90. Without having now to panic and start digging into our reserve to start patching holes. So these are very fundamental and large economic questions, and we only can solve it. We know the information if there's transparency in what we have. It's just like you do not know how much money you have in your bank. How do you know how to resolve your problem? Do you spend more? Do you spend less? Yes, we save for the rainy day, but every day is a rainy day. It depends on how we're going to keep the balance of making sure there's enough for today's rainy day versus tomorrow's rainy day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis, for adding on. You know, just
Craig,
yes,
let me just offer a policy perspective, just a very short one.
Sure, go ahead.
You see, the basic rule of policy making, one of the fundamental rules of policy making is that one policy should be used to address only one policy objective. So when the first generation leaders, when they came out with the housing policy and CPF policy, housing policy was mainly for, HEB was mainly for affordable housing. Okay, one policy objective. Okay, CPF, one policy objective for retirement. The problem happens when, you know, one policy is made to serve more than one policy goals, and especially when the policy goals are conflicting. Take HEB as an example. HEB provide affordable housing and at the same time investment assets. The two goals are actually conflicting, because affordable housing, you have to keep prices low. Investment assets, you have to drive prices up to give return.
Yeah.
You see, so the issue that we are facing now is because of policy makings, not enough thoughts have been put into policy makings. In the end, the policies are made to drive more than one goal. Over a longer term, this is what we get. So what we really need to do is to go back to the original objective, the original purpose of HEB and the original purpose of CPF. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, thank you. Hitting the nail on the head there. There's Meng Hua.
Craig, I got
okay, giving his take. Yes, someone else want to say something?
I got a comment. Yeah, this is Harish.
Sure.
Craig, I got a comment to add to this. Taking a slightly different view. One of the things that was alluded to by Francis as well is that we don't really know how much we have in our reserves. Why is it so difficult for us to know how much we have in our reserves? A lot of the information is actually discernible, but it is hidden in plain sight. It is kept in many other places, some of the places where we want to find the data in terms of how much, where our funds are kept and where is it invested. We don't get to see it easily. It is hidden in documents that are sitting in the library, in the National Library. These are some of the things that I personally discovered trying to find out an understanding of why, how much money do we actually have. It was very difficult for me to get to it. In the end, by the time I thought I got it, it turned out to be actually that was insufficient. That the numbers were much lower than it should be. Clearly, there is a serious need for real transparency, a real conversation across the board. One of the things I would love to see happen is the introduction of a Freedom of Information Act, so that we can actually go get the data that we want from whichever government source or multiple sources within the government to tell us what is it that we want to find out, and the data they definitely have. We cannot be moving forward a smart nation if we are not able to also share data that we need to make decisions collectively. Thank you. Back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there, Harish. Yeah, I just wanted to share a quick takeaway of my own. I used the financial calculator, and just based on what Francis was saying, if we can reduce the price of housing and not use all that money to pay off, and most Singaporeans are doing that, using almost emptying their CPF. If not enough, they still have to top up some cash to pay for their monthly installment for their property. So if we could somehow tweak it whereby not so much or not every cent is used up for housing, so we end up with a bit more cash. And I work on the parameter of you just started with a capital of $1,000 and have 500 added on monthly and compounding at an annual percent of 3%, you end up with more than 450,000 at the end of 40 years. So it's better than having a few dollars and then all being locked away in the minimum sum scheme. So that is something that is seriously that we need to consider. Okay, can we bring on the third poll, please? The third poll that we are going to throw out to our friends who are watching us on Zoom and on Facebook. Okay, the third poll, the question is, with the enactment of POFMA, Singapore's media ranking has fallen to a new low. That's the first question for the third poll. With the enactment of POFMA, Singapore's media ranking has fallen to a new low. The second question in this third poll, there is no accountability, transparency, and independence in the appointments of key office holders in Singapore. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, and the last question is, should we lower the voting age in Singapore to 18 years old? Those are the three questions. The first one for the third poll, with the enactment of POFMA, Singapore's media ranking has fallen to a new low. The second question is, there's no accountability, transparency, and independence in the appointment of key office holders in Singapore. And the last question, for the young at heart, no, not the young at heart, the young people actually, should we lower the voting age in Singapore to 18 years of age? Let's see if we have an answer to that, please. Okay, we have done the thing. And let me now bring on the third trivia question. Third trivia question. And now you got a chance to win the Otakon Otter. Only two. The cap and the t-shirt 55. Okay, the last trivia question is very simple. What is the slogan or tagline for PSP? Okay, it's for something, for something. I've given you a big clue. Have the answer? Please send it to contact@psp.org.sg. So very quickly now, send in your answers, and only 2 persons will win the Otakon Otter. And once again, you will collect your prizes if you are the winner from the PSP HQ, which is located on the 14th floor. That's 14, the 14th floor of the Bukit Timah Shopping Center. And the easiest way to get there is by the downtown line, and you alight at the Beauty World station. Okay, let's see now, my admin people, do we have the results for the last poll before we wrap up for the night? We are about 12 minutes away to the ending. Oh, with the enactment of POFMA, Singapore's media ranking has fallen to a new low, and almost 70% have said yes, they agree with that. And the second one, there is no accountability, transparency, and independence in the appointment of key office holders in Singapore. And wow, it's almost 80%, 79%. And what about the last question, the last poll question? Should we lower the voting age in Singapore to 18 years old? What is the answer to that? Can we have that on the screen, or is actually on the screen here? 43% says yes, about half. 15% says maybe agree to it. Someone disagree is 17%, and disagree is about 25%. Okay, so all the answers are in. So with the enactment of POFMA, Singapore's media ranking has fallen to a new low. So any of the panel members, can we have the panel members back on screen, please? Any questions or that you like to, any one of you like to take on this thing about POFMA has driven Singapore's international media ranking to a new low?
Yeah, Craig, I'll
yeah?
venture
Sure.
a stab at this question.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very interesting question that was asked and phrased that way as well in terms of our international media ranking. So it's quite interesting that it is phrased that way, because I myself took a module on comparative freedom of speech in NUS just the last semester, and it was taught by preeminent legal media scholar Jason Bosland from Australia. So he had an interesting perspective on POFMA. And even within our NUS faculty itself, there has been quite a lot of debate about this legislation. So certainly during the course, he emphasized his views, and basically he said that it is something that troubles him. So actually what he said surprised me, and beyond what he said, the way in which he sort of addressed the issue was concerning, because it was in an academic setting in university, an institute of higher learning. But when it came to the question, and we previously looked at all the other jurisdictions and other countries in the world regarding their, laws regulating the freedom of speech. And when it came to POFMA, he had some views on it, but he actually hesitated and said, I can't speak too much about it. I don't want to say too much, because later they don't let me fly back to Australia, so that kind of statement, and so he said, oh, yeah, exactly, and maybe y'all should talk more. So that to me was troubling, because that breeds a kind of climate of fear. And if you can imagine that in an academic institution, in university, when you are supposed to be discussing the legality and the validity, the constitutional arguments about whether such a law is important or necessary, that the teacher, the professor himself is hesitant to speak. So you can imagine the man on the street and everybody, all Singaporeans, that POFMA has become something that entered our lingo. When we talk, sometimes you say something wrong and then they say, hey, you say this, later the government POFMA you better be careful. That is the kind of jokes that we tell each other these days, right? It's certainly something that it happens a lot. And there was also an interesting article which I came across by our own Vice Dean at NUS, Professor David Tan. And I mean, there are many legal arguments as to why it is problematic, this POFMA law. And I think I won't want to, address them. Maybe I'll just touch on one which I felt is really quite pertinent. So quite apart from the fact that the law currently has quite a few issues regarding what is fact, what is opinion, and therefore the courts are currently unable to decide, there's also an additional element under Section 7 of POFMA. Because currently, when the correction order is issued, it actually has two requirements. And first, it is that the statement must be false, whether true or false. And the second issue is whether it is a matter of public interest. So there has been currently a lot of debate about, how do you determine truth and, fact and opinion and all that. And those are very valid. But what an interesting point that our Professor David Tan, the Vice Dean at NUS, raises is that, there is also the element of public interest, which is not defined and actually allows the government to, as an opportunity to suppress free speech when it concerns matters which are important. So I actually have the article he has, and maybe I'll just read a very short line on what he wrote for you. So he says, the effect of excluding judicial review over the aspect of public interest is that ministers can potentially act against falsehoods even when the fake news does not undermine the public interest. This has raised fears that political office holders will use POFMA to suppress political dissent. In Singapore, where one party enjoys an overwhelming majority in parliament, there is a heightened risk that POFMA will be perceived as a backdoor to suppressing political criticism. So, I mean, that is a view of our Vice Dean at NUS, and then many other academic papers have been written on the matter. But precisely, I think it's about striking the appropriate balance, and without adequate safeguards, as what I mentioned, safeguards regarding who will determine public interest, what is truth and falsehood, and when the law is uncertain, how do we decide these matters? I think there is a scope to reconsider whether this law is necessary and one that we should be having on our books. Yeah, so I think that's what I'll say about
Thank
that.
you very
Thanks,
much there, Sean, for your giving us your insight. And it's quite funny when you mentioned about the Australian professor who was so fearful that he might not be allowed to leave Singapore. But it might seem funny to us, right? But if I am the professor, I mean, I can't really blame him for having that thought that he might be held back from leaving Singapore. Anyone else from the panel like to add on, because we do have to wrap up soon? Yes.
Yes. So I actually submitted a paper to the select committee when they call for submissions. I have a backstory to this. In 2013, I actually attended an international conference on media, and just a year before that, I noticed that one of the Middle Eastern countries, right, after the Arab Spring, they went through a bit of turmoil, and they shut down 450 websites. They were ranked X, and Singapore was behind them. And I was curious, in that particular year, Singapore didn't shut down any website. So I was going around and telling, look, if you want to know about regulation and how to keep, get people to toe the line, you got to actually come back to Singapore. But what's interesting is POFMA has taken it to a completely different level. It's a different dimension altogether. And it's interesting how the government has been going around POFMA-ing everyone. One of the editors at The Independent actually said that it's an insecticide. So, it's like a spray can, you just POFMA, and then there you go, the pest is actually eradicated. And that's the government's attitude to dissent, right? Anybody who has got an alternate view, they just want to use that insecticide, and they are treating dissenters or people with different views as pests and insects. That is frightening. We are no longer inclusive of people with different views, and that's damaging. The other thing about media ranking is it looks at a whole host of factors, right? Not just POFMA alone. The way the journalists are being treated, the way publications are being treated, the way the robustness of journalism and media programs in the country. And also what's remarkable, a couple of years ago, a professor of journalism, his contract wasn't renewed. Let's put it that way. So these are all troubling, that the government has become a lot more authoritarian, and at some stage, I think that safety valve, right, that we speak of, that's the purpose of the video of media. That safety valve is going to give way, and in order to prevent that, what we need is more robust arguments. And one of the things that I've said is maybe we should create safe spaces for people to have robust arguments. And that's my response to that. I don't know how much time we've got, but thank you very much, Craig.
Okay, thank you very much, Kumaran, with your media experience, at least giving us your take on POFMA. Right, folks, we are almost like time's up. It's almost 10 o'clock. And just before I wrap up, is there anything else that maybe Doc would like to say to all the viewers who are watching us on Zoom and on Facebook Live? Is there anything, Doc, you want to add on, or just say to the good people who have spent almost 2 hours with us?
Yeah, I think thank you all for attending this session. You have heard from members of the PSP their reasons for joining us, and also their hopes and aspirations for Singapore. But we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day, what sort of government do we want? That's very important we got to ask. And that's the reason why I'm coming from. I think we have to build a very strong Singapore. And to build a strong Singapore, it has to be based on some fundamental elements. That is to build a good and trusted political system, which we must try to build. And this is because we got to build trust in our political system so that the people can move with you, can carry the policies that you have crafted up. Now, I've said this many times, and again, many of the members of the panels have also said about the importance of being more open. Look at our reserves. Nobody actually knows what's happening there. How much you want to spend, of course, you must know how much you have. It's a very fundamental thing. So to have all these, again, the processes of a good government has to come into play again. And what are these processes? This accountability that some of you mentioned, right? This transparency, and of course, the independence of appointment somebody is talking about. Now, these to me are very, very important. Now, many of you have talked about politics, but honestly, I think PSP must move away from politics of anger, politics of envy, and politics of fear. I think we want to live a life in Singapore where we are not fearful of talking, so worried that you either be postmarked or whether you will have to get some legal action taken against you. I think we would have to avoid all this. So people, if they ever go to Parliament, have actually got to ask the right questions. They have to push for answers and also to speak up for one another. These are so basic, so fundamental. And those who are watching this program, I think you have seen for yourself that the members who have come forward to join PSP are very, very concerned citizens. They've given up a lot of their time, made a lot of sacrifices to come forward. And I am grateful to them. Because I remembered initially when I first started the party, they laughed at me. They laughed because they said, look, what is Doc trying to do? Bring all these old people coming to Parliament to stay, talk on what? That's why I'm so grateful. So many of young people, Merdeka generation people, even Pioneer generation have come from. And we take all of them. We're not choosing. And amongst them, we will find good people to run this country. So with that note, I want to thank all of you again from attending this session, and also the panelists for giving your views. Maybe we should allow more people to ask questions. Maybe our answers should be a bit shorter so that we can allow them to ask more questions. That is all I want to say. Thank you very much and good night to all of you.
Right, Doc, thank you very much. There was Dr. Tan Cheng Bok, who is the Secretary General of Progress Party Singapore, rounding up tonight's event. We have exceeded by a couple of minutes, but I don't think anyone's going to scream at us for doing that. So just like to let you all know, as elections will be coming or happening soon, it could be in July, it could be in September. For those of you who are tuning in to this program, and if you are interested to help us, okay, that means you could become a member or a volunteer. And remember, you don't have to become a member of PSP. This you are seeing on the screen right now. You can click on those links, or if you can't because it's an image, take it with your mobile phones, and then you can become our counting or polling agent, because we need a lot of help from Singaporeans to come and do these things. So to join us as a polling or accounting agent, or as a member, or even as a volunteer, you have to be Singaporean, minimum 18 years of age, okay? So if you want to do that, please go on to those relevant links and then find out a bit more. Only thing is that I was told if you're 18 years old and you're still studying in the JC or the millennial colleges, whatever, then you are prevented. As a student, you are prevented from joining. in that sense. So we welcome you to come and help us when we are already in the thick of a G 2020. Your guess is as good as mine as to when it's going to be happening. Okay, so folks, thank you very much. We are really happy that you have spent this time with us this evening on MeetPSP 2. That's MeetPSP 2. We have a MeetPSP 3 that will be happening shortly in June as well. So we hope you will join us and let your friends know about it, and do join us at that time. So my name is Craig, and I'm the host and moderator for this MeetPSP 2. We'd like to once again thank all the viewers that are joining us on Zoom and on Facebook for being with us this evening. Thank you very much. God bless. Love to all. Good night and bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.